Hey guys, this is my first YouTube video, so I hope it turns out well, but today I want to talk about some stuff that I've struggled with in the past, that I've talked to people lately who've been struggling with the same thing, and some things that really hurt me as a person, and hurt my heart, and breaks my heart for the children of God. What I want to talk about is, we get so wrapped up in our sin that we either forget that God's there, or we start making the excuses, well, God can't love me because of. And for each of us, there's sometimes a different thing of why we believe God can't love us. And we spend so much time caught up in that. And we spend so much time thinking, well, I've watched too much porn, so God can't love me, or I've had too much sex, or I've done too much club hopping, and God just can't love me anymore. His grace can't reach me anymore. It's too far gone. So what I want to talk about today is that's not true. I want to talk about a mindset that we are more than the mistakes we have made in our life, and we are more than the mistakes we will make. So like I said before, this reasoning that we give, these excuses, they break my heart. They didn't break my heart when I used them, but they break my heart now because I see the brokenness it causes, and it hurts to see it. I've gotten the opportunity to talk to people lately that have, just to hear these things and how they feel about it. And, just hear that, I'm struggling because I've done this and I don't believe God can love me anymore. God can't be near me anymore because of what I've done, and there's no way He can be there. And this is the point of this, is just to tell you that thinking, that mindset is so wrong. I just want us to think that we are more than our past and our transgressions. So, I want to assure everybody that we will struggle, that we will have problems, that we will struggle, we will go through temptation. But what else I want to assure everybody. And in Jeremiah 29, Jeremiah 29:11, God says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope for the future." God doesn't, He won't give us any more than we can handle, but He tells us we will struggle. This life will be full of struggle, and we will have issues. But He's always right there with us because He has plans to prosper us and not to harm us. Plans that have a future. Plans that have hope. So we come to this point where we can struggle. We can come to a point where we can struggle apart from Christ, or we can struggle with Christ. And that's the thing. If we struggle apart from Christ, there is no hope. Our sin that comes from our struggle isn't covered. And our sin that comes from our struggle will consume us, and it will control us. And then we become what Paul said, as we serve our flesh, and not our flesh serving our mind. That's what happens when we struggle apart from Christ. But see, here's the thing. We can also struggle with Christ. And we can struggle with Christ by our side. And that's the glorious thing, is when that happens. Because that's when our struggle meets glory. And that's when our sin is covered by His grace. That's when our life starts to prove 2 Corinthians 12:9, where it says, "My grace is sufficient for you, and my power is made perfect in weakness. Therefore I will boast gladly in my weakness, so that Christ's power may rest on me." That's what happens when we struggle with Christ. That's when everything comes together. That's when we realize God is right there in our struggle. In the midst of our struggle, He's there. So that with Christ, we're not struggling to be free. we're free from our sin. But instead, with Christ, we are free to struggle, that His grace is sufficient for us. And His grace is made perfect in weakness. His grace is made perfect in struggle. What else I want to talk about is, this whole concept that, God can't be there in my struggle. So I don't believe that. And I believe that when we run away, when we go astray, He's still there. I once heard, something where it said, no matter how many steps we take away from God, He's always just one step back. And I also think of Luke 15, where Jesus tells the parable of the prodigal son. The older son, he demands his wealth, he demands his inheritance from his father, and then he goes out and squanders it on what we don't know. It could be anything. It could have been money. He could have just blown it on whatever. It could have been girls. It could have been parties. Whatever it was, he squandered the wealth. And he comes back ashamed, walking up his father's drive, because he has no money. He has to have a way to eat. And he's going back to work for his father. And while he's still a long way off, his father runs to him and embraces him and rejoices that his son has come home. I look at that and think, we are the prodigal son, that no matter if we go astray, no matter how long we're astray, and no longer how far we go, He's waiting to embrace us. And He's ready to come to hold us and to run to us, because we're His children. And because He's waiting to tell us that we are more than our sin, that we are more than our struggle, and that we are more than whatever we do, the decisions that we make. We are more than all of that. And that's what I want us to believe today, is that we are more than sin. And no matter what we do, no matter if it's sex, if it's porn, if it's drugs, if it's alcohol, no matter what we do, Christ is one step back, just waiting to embrace us as His children. I get part of my influence for this from the song by 10th Avenue North called "You Are More." It's actually one of my favorite songs. Just the fact that, just for us to think about this, what the lyrics say. You are more than the trouble. You are more than the things you have done. You are more than the trouble you've caused. You are more than your past. You are more than your future. You are more. And what you are is you are beloved, because that's what Christ does to us. He ransomed us and then calls us, and then once we accept Him, He has erased whatever we have done and just calls us beloved. We're that prisoner set free. We're Barabbas who Pontius Pilate set free and let someone else die who was innocent, who let the guilty go. We are the guilty, and we have been let go. Our sins have been forgiven. We have been redeemed by Christ. We were guilty and He was innocent, yet He still paid that price. So I just want us to think about that we're redeemed, and that we are more than our guilt, our transgression, and our sin.